Welcome back, Holotable Heroes, to not another Galaxy of Heroes video. Yeah, I said that right. Heroes of Middle-earth is a brand new CG game that got released about 10 days ago, something like that, and everybody is talking about it at the moment, so I thought I'd dip my toes in and see what's what, just take a little look-see, take a peek, and see if it's worth playing. We are going to talk all things Heroes of Middle-earth today and just see, should you be playing it, and why hobbits suck. Let's do this.
Scraps you, so give it up.
My dead body.
Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, here we are. Now, those of you that know, CG don't just make Galaxy of Heroes. They make this game called Heroes of Middle-earth. It's based off this really small franchise called Lord of the Rings, I think they call it. I doubt you've ever heard of it ever before. It's not like it's a really massive IP or anything like that. And essentially, it is a complete SWGoH clone. It is exactly the same as what you would expect a early game SWGoH would be. You have characters. Each character has got levels. They have abilities. They each have 6 gear slots per gear tier. You also happen to have, abilities that you level up, stars that go up to a maximum of 7. You shard farm shards of these characters exactly the same way on hard nodes that you encounter throughout the game. You have energy types. It's basically everything that you do in a Galaxy of Hero games basically plays the same way. You've got guilds, you've got allies, you have got a light side and a dark side path. You might not have a cantina, but you do have what's known as a guild campaign. And ultimately, anybody that enjoys Galaxy of Heroes gameplay and core mechanics will actually enjoy this game if you happen to also like the Lord of the Rings IP, and that really is the crux of it. Essentially, the campaign battles that you go through and the combat there is more or less a drag and drop of what you would expect to see in a standard Galaxy of Heroes battle. Let's just jump in to a random, really difficult battle that I won't be able to complete here because my characters suck. No more than that. So you have your character selection here. Look, we've got 5 slots for a character, exactly the same number of characters as we take in Galaxy of Heroes. You have a dedicated leader that will pass leadership bonuses on to the rest of your allies. You do team building, and it is very much similar to Galaxy of Heroes in that aspect. You have a little icon at the top, I don't know if you noticed it there, that said synergy, and essentially the higher that number, the more synergy that exists in your team. I wouldn't exclusively just look at that as a metric for how good your team is, obviously, because those of you that played Galaxy of Heroes in the early days will be aware that kits were not as nuanced as they are now. They are not specifically built around trying to work with certain factions or certain kits. They are more generalized and perhaps not as powerful. You can very much see that in early game character kits for Heroes of Middle-earth. For example, Stinging Swipe. This is a basic from Pippin, I think it is. Attack the target enemy for 100% damage and a 50% chance to dispel 1 boon. A boon is the same as a buff. It is a green icon that appears over the heads of the enemy. We've got a 50% chance to dispel. And abilities work a little bit differently in this game. Essentially, everything requires stamina. You can see these stamina charges. To use an ability, you generate stamina every single time you take a turn, so you won't necessarily have all of your abilities available on turn 1. But other than that, the combat is very, very similar. You select targets, you use an ability. Everybody has got this blue bar here, which is essentially a visual representation of your turn meter. You can see Eowyn here has got a stamina bar full for her first special, Valiant Protector. Grant might for 1 turn to itself, and that might is essentially offense up. And then and you suffer 2 random allies, and then call the ally with the highest damage to assist. So we'll use that ability, and she probably calls Strider. Strider attacks. There we go. So might damage is increased by 50%. It's similar to offense up that you would see within Galaxy of Heroes. Strider over here, who is essentially Aragorn in the early stages of Lord of the Rings. He's got 2 special abilities here. One is an AoE with increased crit chance and additional damage. Combat-wise, like I said, guys, not particularly any different from what you might expect to see in Galaxy of Heroes, except for the fact that the kits aren't as detailed. They're certainly not as powerful as what we see in Galaxy of Heroes right now, and that, I'm sure, is a very deliberate thing by CG. They are probably planning to bake in their own level of upward progression or power creep, essentially, as the game generates additional characters, gets a little bit more life to it, additional game modes become available, and that sort of thing. There's nothing inherently wrong with a bit of power creep in the game, and you can see very much plainly that they've built this game to have plenty of power creep as it goes on. So this is just basic battles. The graphics, I'm not going to rag on it like everybody rags on it and saying it's terrible. It's an artistic style, I guess, is how I would describe it. Is it to my tastes? Probably not. Things look a little bit jagged. You can see the background textures are a little bit dull. Maybe over time they will invest a little bit more in the art style of the game to make it look that little bit prettier. I don't know. All I can comment on is how it looks right now. And right now, it doesn't look great. When you've got games like Raid Shadow Legends out there that really sort of pushes graphical fidelity for a mobile game that much higher, it does make me a little bit upset, a little bit disappointed that CG with a big IP such as Lord of the Rings isn't actually able to go in and say, hey, let's actually make this game look phenomenal. Instead, they've gone for, let's go for an artistic style that is clearly lacking polish, and we'll leave it at that. So yeah, as you can see, similar to in a typical Galaxy of Heroes light side combat battle, we've got a number of waves that you clear through in order to 3-star the node, so then you can sim it afterwards. The difference lies in simming. In excuse me. In Heroes of Middle-earth, there's no such thing as sim tickets. Okay, once you've 3-starred a node, you can just sim it. You don't need to have sim tickets, and I know that's not an issue for anybody that's past level 60 in Galaxy of Heroes, but it's clearly CG has made the choice and thought, actually, you know what? Sim tickets were probably just a really terrible idea. Let's not introduce them again. And have saved themselves a little bit of trouble, a little bit of hassle, and certainly saved us all of the pain and hassle associated with having to actually farm sim tickets at the early game. Now, it looks like I might well lose my... Is it Eothane there? Yeah, Eothane. He's one of those, Rohan guys, apparently. I don't know. They've got a load of characters in here that I don't recognize. Obviously, a bunch of characters that those of you that are Lord of the Rings fan will certainly immediately recognize, like Eowyn, Eomer, you got Strider, you got Frodo, you got, Pippin, you got Merry, you got Samwise Gamgee, etc., etc. We'll get onto that in just a little bit. But there's obviously a whole dearth of characters that you would expect to see in a game like this that aren't actually introduced just yet. For example, you don't have access to any of the Fellowship of the Ring right now. You don't have access to characters like Gimli, like Legolas, like a normal Aragorn, like Boromir. Many of these characters are missing. You don't have access to Gandalf, for example. He's apparently quite a big character in Lord of the Rings, right? I think Gandalf's quite important. But as you can see, there we go. I 2-starred a node, so I'll have to go back and probably 3-star it later. We get some XP, which you use to build characters XP, gold that you use to buy things and level up characters, and XP for your user account, which dictates your max level and your max energy. It'll all sound very familiar to you people that have been playing through Galaxy of Heroes as it has progressed itself. What else can we show? Arena. This one should be self-explanatory. We have an arena. Within the arena leaderboard is where you earn your premium currency, which is gems, not crystals this time. Obviously, the higher up in arena you are, the more gems that you earn. I'm currently in, where am I? I'm in bronze 1. I'm a bronze, that's like essentially carbonite. I'm not very good. But I'm not wailing on this game. I'm not wailing, I'm just enjoying it for the time being, and I will be honest. My honest thoughts on this game right now are, it's quite enjoyable. It does everything Galaxy of Heroes does. It's a new IP. Well, I mean, Lord of the Rings is not new, but it does the exact same gameplay loop, essentially. You farm your characters on hard nodes, you build up your teams, you go in and you dominate in arena. There is also, of course, guild campaign over here. This is essentially exactly the same as Cantina. So you might not have any limits on the number of battles that you can sim. However, the energy is more expensive. It is 100 gems to refresh 120 energy, exactly the same as Galaxy of Heroes, compared to the 50. I've already done 3 refreshes of campaign energy today, so that's gone up to 50. I'm not doing any more. I don't have the gems to support it anyway. Now, what's missing right now? What's missing? Well, currently, there's no such thing as raids. The very first raid that they're working on in Mines of Moria is, from what we've heard from the developers, because it is CG, but it's not the exact same people that's working on it, From what we've heard from the developers, raids are going to be a little bit different. It looks like it's going to be a slow, rolled out, timed event. Sounds a little bit closer to Conquest, in my opinion. A cross between Conquest and raids is what I'm feeling. You will essentially travel through nodes, much similar to the Crate Dragon raid that you see in Galaxy of Heroes. You will now have essentially a Conquest route that you go through. I think you go through the Mines of Moria, you try to progress as far as you can with difficulty modifiers, similar to the Crate Dragon raid. You will also have guild rewards and a personal reward track. And they're not releasing the whole timed event, the whole raid at one point. Okay, so it's going to be phased out. So I imagine what you're going to do is you're going to find the entrance to Mines of Moria. Then you're going to breach into Mines of Moria and you're going to fight a bunch of goblins, culminating in a boss battle against a cave troll. And then you're going to escape a horde of goblins and you're going to run away. And then you're going to fight off against a Balrog, the shadow of which you can see in the background here. And what I think this is going to do is give us access to the first raid character. And if I were to guess at what character they're going to release with this, I would have to say most likely Gandalf the Grey will be released through this raid event. So your guild will have to either complete a certain amount or get a certain point threshold. Completely unclear right now. So similar, from what I can see, it's not out yet, similar in my experience to some sort of cross between Conquest and standard Crate Dragon raid that we are currently experiencing in Galaxy of Heroes. You also have these things called adventures. Now, adventures to me seem like the daily events that we get in Galaxy of Heroes. This Samwise Gamgee adventure, Gardener's Journey, I think this is the equivalent of a marquee, because it isn't a direct thing. When we have marquee announced and released in Galaxy of Heroes, you essentially have, 5 or 6 battles. You go in and you just pick your favorite characters in hit order and just win, right? In this, you have an energy that slowly refreshes, and you have a bunch of battles where you slowly gain shards. You can see, what do we have, like 7 battles here? 1, 2, well, actually, we can just go right back to the end, if it will let me scroll. 7 battles for one part of the mission, and you can see you've got 4 subsections, and each of those have got 7 battles in them, okay? And then, if you complete all of these battles, and it's not particularly difficult, you will unlock essentially the next stage. Well, you actually unlock the character at 3-star release, just like in Galaxy of Heroes. Then there is a tier 2. But in order to get the tier 2, you essentially have to have the relevant characters starred up to a certain degree. And this is where the sort of whaling aspect comes into it. Because although it says you only need 4 Rivendell characters at 4 stars to unlock Samwise Gamgee up to 7 stars, even those people that have got them at 4 stars are still struggling to beat this even at gear level 6. And gear level 6 I know doesn't sound particularly high, but in this game, the gear cap is gear level 8 and the level cap is level 60. So you essentially have to invest a lot of effort into gearing and unlocking these characters at a high star ratio in order to try and max out the character. So I think they're trying to incentivize marquees in a little bit of a different fashion here, more as sort of events that you whale on to try to progress. And I don't know how many tiers there are down here, but if it's similar to this, and if you've got another 4 stages, as it were, with 7 missions in each, that's a lot of additional battles that you go through this currency where you're going to have to refresh it, and it's quite costly, 200 gems per refresh. It's going to cost a lot of money, but in the same vein, you can still unlock parts of that character relatively free to play friendly, as it were. You also do have your standard things like your shipments, but in here it's just a regular store where you can buy shards of characters for those I keep on forgetting them, gems, or you can just buy standard gear that you might be low on. Like that piece of gear is actually pretty valuable, so I'm going to buy that. What else have we got? You've got an arena store, so you earn arena shards by doing arena battles and climbing in the arena, and you can buy things like Xaereth. Don't say that too quickly. Might get demonetized on YouTube. And you can buy things like Eomer. So we'll go ahead and buy shards for them. So this is almost identical to what we see in Galaxy of Heroes. We've got another store here. Which one's this one? I can't even remember. Oh, the challenge store. You've got daily challenges, just like you do in Galaxy of Heroes, with more characters or more bits of gear. And then you've got the guild store as well, where you've got additional characters and ability materials. So very, very similar, and I highly expect this store to expand, so we're getting more stores as things come on. What else is currently missing in the game? Guild PvP is currently not in the game. We don't have anything like a guild war or a faction war or whatever what they want to call it. It's all very bare bones at the moment. So we're still waiting to have an announcement on that and see what's coming. Additionally, you do obviously have a pay-to-win store, which has got some rather atrocious pricing to it. Not something that I will be particularly engaging in, and you can also buy gems directly to help you boost the progress of your roster. You've also got the ability to buy Heroes Chest, which is basically proper gacha. Do not engage in this rubbish. And then bonus chest. This is kind of like your Bronzium once a day. You can claim this like every 4 hours or something, and it essentially gives you 1 shard of 1 character. Now, there is a slight nuanced difference here. Whilst you do level up and rank up or star up your characters in the same way, the required number of stars per shards per stars are much higher. You can see 45 there is the number of shards that you need to unlock Halberad, for example, but 45 shards is only a 2-star character, not a 3-star character as you would expect in Galaxy of Heroes. So, and right at the top end, I think we've got Gar's Ironhide, who's probably the best character to unlock early game. I've got him at 5 stars right now, and in order to get to 6 stars, I need 200 shards. It's much higher in that cap range. Okay, so you expect to farm a lot longer. To sort of balance it out, everything is an accelerated farm. So every time we farm something, we'll get double drops, essentially. So ultimately, I still think you spend a longer time trying to star up characters in this game, but also there's only like 46 characters in the entire game right now, so they kind of need to slow it down. All right. Gear crunches and, I was going to say credit crunches, very much exist here. Gold crunches exist in this game right now. And again, I put this down to this game being very early, and they have to try to stifle player growth early on and limit the amount of resources that we've got in order to invest and improve our roster. Otherwise, everybody is going to be maxing out their characters very quickly. I've only got 252,000 gold right now because I just finished a bunch of quests, and it gave me a bunch of materials. You can see those quests down here. These are different to your daily objectives. You can see strength in numbers, for example, in 3 stars in Lightside Campaign 3.9 will give me 75,000 gold. And then you can get ability materials and these bits of incredibly valuable gear that are required in the boatload, essentially. So it's very much in your interest to be working through these various quests. Galaxy of Heroes has the same sort of quests as you progress in the early stage. The later you get into the game, the less important those quests become, but they are actually very important for early game progression. Okay, I'm not sure what else I could really talk about Heroes of Middle-earth. I don't know if I'm going to be covering this content full time. All I can say is right now, guys, I am enjoying the game, and I'm just going to see where it takes me. So I'll probably put out a couple of videos. They've just announced their first legendary character, which is going to be Lord Elrond. I think a few of you might know who he is, also known as Agent Smith, I think. So, fantastic. Let me know. Are you playing Heroes of Middle-earth? Let me know in the comment section down below. Please do not forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the very next video. Peace out and big love.